We've all got that daily grind, right? The meetings, the deadlines, maybe a commute, but underneath all that routine, there's a whole emotional story playing out. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that story, using some incredible data from over 100,000 counseling sessions. So you look at a picture like this, and it seems pretty straightforward. Just a busy office, people getting things done. But the real question is what's going on behind the scenes, emotionally? What's really happening beneath the surface? Well, we're about to get a pretty unique glimpse into that.
I love this quote from the CEO because it just nails it. The data we're looking at isn't just a mirror showing us where we are right now. It's also a compass that can help point us in the right direction. It's all about understanding today so we can build a better tomorrow. All right, let's kick things off with the big picture. What's the general emotional vibe at work these days?
Well, the first and maybe the most obvious trend is that across the board, more and more of us are reaching out for help.
And the numbers really show it. The counseling utilization rate, that's just the percentage of employees actually using the service, it jumped from 3.7% to 4.6%. Now, that might not sound like a huge leap, but in just 1 year, that's a really significant increase. It tells us people are getting more proactive about their mental well-being.
And the reason we can trust these insights? The sheer scale of it all. This whole analysis is built on data from more than 100,000 individual counseling sessions. So we're not talking about a small poll here. This is a massive, deep data set that gives us a really solid understanding of what's going on.
Okay, so we know more people are reaching out. The next logical question is, why? What's really driving them to pick up the phone? And I gotta tell you, the answer probably isn't what you're thinking.
And here's where it gets super interesting. You'd think, right, that work stress would be the #1 reason people use a work-provided service. But the data tells a totally different story. Personal concerns make up a whopping 46% of all sessions. That's more than 3 times the rate of workplace issues. The big takeaway here, it's the stuff happening outside of the office that's weighing on us the most.
So how does all this actually show up in our lives? The data reveals this clear chain reaction. It all starts with one core feeling. And no big surprise here, the top one reported is stress. That's the spark.
And once that stress takes hold, what does our brain do with it? Well, for almost a quarter of us, it turns into overthinking. That stress just gets stuck on a loop, playing over and over in our minds.
And what happens when you're stressed out and your brain won't shut off? It starts to affect your actions, or in this case, your inaction. The most common result is a decline in self-care. We stop doing the very things that help us feel better. Getting enough sleep, eating right, exercising, they all take a hit.
Now, this whole sequence of emotion, thought, and behavior, it doesn't just stay bottled up inside us. It ripples outward, and the data shows the biggest impact is on our families. The stress we carry ends up affecting the people closest to us the most. Okay, let's shift gears a little and dig deeper to see who might be the most vulnerable. When we start breaking down the data by different groups, a really important story starts to emerge. So if we slice this by age, the largest group reaching out for help is between 25 and 30 years old. But that's actually not the main headline here. The really startling trend is happening over on the left side of this chart.
And this is it. 14% of users are under the age of 25. Now, that might not sound like the biggest slice of the pie, but get this. Just the year before, that number was only 3%. That is a dramatic and, honestly, a deeply concerning spike.
We also see a clear difference when we look at gender. Women are seeking support more often, making up 53% of users compared to 46% for men. It's pretty clear that right now, women are more likely to reach out for formal support.
Okay, before we go to the next slide, it's really important we're all on the same page. When this report talks about high risk, it's not a casual term. It has a very specific, clinical definition. It means someone has active suicidal thoughts, a detailed plan, a clear intent to act on that plan, and they have access to the means to do so. It's a vital piece of context.
So, keeping that very serious definition in mind, the data on these high-risk cases points to 2 groups in particular. The report finds a higher prevalence of suicide risk among women and the highest prevalence of all among individuals under 25. The data is telling us these are the people who require the most urgent attention.
So, we've seen the trends, we've looked at the root causes, and we've identified the risk factors. Let's try to pull all of this together and ask the big question. What does this all mean for the world of work? And there's one final piece of data that adds a fascinating new layer. And here's that final, fascinating twist.
We already know that more women seek help overall, but watch what happens when you break it down by the type of concern. Women are more likely to reach out for personal issues, but it turns out men are actually more likely to seek help when the issue is specifically about the workplace. It's a subtle distinction, but a really important one.
Which brings us to a final, really critical question. The data couldn't be clearer. Our personal lives are the biggest driver of the distress that leads us to use work-provided counseling. So, in this world where the lines between work and home are blurrier than ever, where does an employer's responsibility for our well-being really begin? And where does it end? That's the tough question this data forces all of us to confront.